The cryogenic chamber hissed softly, a sound almost like a whisper. Inside, a figure lay perfectly still, encased in clear glass. His name was Elias, and he had not moved for 15,000 years. The world outside had changed beyond imagination, but he had been preserved, waiting for a time he could not understand. Elias's mind flickered to life as the chamber began to hum louder. Tiny lights blinked along the control panel, warning that his awakening sequence had begun. For 15 millennia he had slept, dreaming nothing, suspended in a silence that had once been human hope. Now the process that would pull him back to consciousness was unstoppable. A sharp hiss echoed through the chamber as the temperature and atmosphere adjusted. Elias's eyes snapped open. The first thing he noticed was the light, pale, soft, almost green, filtering through what looked like broken glass and twisted metal. The second was the smell, earth rain and something wild. Not the sterile scent of a laboratory, but something alive, raw and unfamiliar. He struggled to sit up, feeling muscles that had not moved in eons. Pain flared through his body, yet it was sweet pain, proof that he was alive. As his vision cleared, Elias saw the chamber he had known all his life was gone. The walls were cracked, wires hung loose, and plants had begun to crawl inside. The cryogenic lab, once a place of human perfection, was now a garden claimed by nature. Elias stood unsteadily. He touched the glass casing of his old chamber, now half shattered, and felt the cold bite of metal. Around him the silence was deep, almost holy. He expected alarms, voices, machines, but there were none. Humanity was gone, or at least it seemed so. He stepped forward and looked out through what used to be a large observation window. Outside, a city stretched as far as he could see. But it was not the city he had remembered. Skyscrapers had crumbled, roads were cracked, and trees pushed their way through concrete. Birds circled freely, and in the distance, a herd of deer wandered across what had once been a bustling avenue. It was beautiful, and it was lonely. A sudden realization struck him. He was the last human awake. 15,000 years of time had passed, and every person he had known, every civilization, every memory had vanished. His heart raced, filled with fear, grief, and disbelief. But alongside the fear was a spark of curiosity, a human trait that had survived through millennia. Elias stepped out of the chamber room carefully, his boots crunching on broken glass. The air was different, cleaner yet strange, filled with the sense of life, rain, and decay. He could hear water dripping somewhere, and distant sounds of animals moving through the city. His first instinct was to find answers. Why had humanity disappeared? What had replaced it? And most importantly, could he survive in this world? He wandered through the ruined city, noting the strange way nature had returned. Vines clung to buildings and trees grew through broken roads. Birds nested in streetlights. Small animals peered from shadows, curious but not afraid. It was as if the city had never been built by humans at all. Elias marveled at the resilience of life, but a deep sorrow lingered in his chest. In the middle of the city, he found a structure still partially intact. It was a library, or what remained of one. Glass doors hung on their hinges and books lay scattered, some pages eaten by time, water, and insects. Elias stepped inside and ran his hands along the shelves. He could almost feel the presence of humans here, their dreams, knowledge, and fears embedded in these objects. He found a terminal, old but surprisingly functional. Dust and rust had not destroyed all technology. A faint hum came from the screen as it flickered to life. Words appeared, system active. Environmental scan in progress. Elias's pulse quickened. Perhaps he was not entirely alone. Perhaps some part of humanity had survived in machines. A voice came through the speakers, soft but clear. "Greetings, Elias. I am Aura, the Autonomous Utility Research Assistant. You have awakened after 15,000 years. My purpose is to assist you in understanding the world as it is now." Elias felt a shiver run down his spine. An AI had survived where humans had not. Where is everyone?" he asked, his voice cracking. "They are no longer here," Aura replied. "Human civilization has ended. Environmental collapse, war, and unchecked technological experiments led to extinction. The world has healed in their absence. Life has returned in forms they never imagined." Elias sank to the floor, trying to process the words. He thought of his family, friends, cities, the bustling streets he had walked. All gone. Tears pricked his eyes, though it had been so long that he barely remembered the feeling of loss. Yet Aura's calm voice reminded him that he was alive, and alive meant he had choices. What should I do?" he asked. Explore, said Aura. Observe. Learn. Your knowledge is unique and your perspective can guide what comes next. The Earth has changed, but it has not abandoned life. You must discover its new form. Elias nodded. He stood feeling the weight of years and responsibility. He had no map, no plan, no allies, but he had curiosity, courage, and the strange resilience of humanity within him. And that might be enough. He left the library and stepped into the streets. A fox darted past him, pausing to sniff his boots before disappearing into a vine-covered alley. A bird landed on a crumbling street lamp and watched him with bright eyes. Everything seemed to study him as he studied it. He was both predator and observer in this new world. As he walked, Elias noticed the sky. Stars were sharper than he remembered, unpolluted by city lights. Clouds rolled like silver rivers across the horizon. Rain began to fall softly, soaking the overgrown roads and washing away the dust of centuries. Elias lifted his face to the sky, letting the water hit him. He felt alive, truly alive. He wandered farther and discovered the outskirts of the city. Here, trees stretched taller than the tallest skyscrapers and rivers carved new paths through the land. The sounds of life were everywhere. Animals, wind, flowing water, but human voices were absent. He realized that the Earth had moved on, growing stronger without humanity's interference. Elias stopped on a hill overlooking the horizon. The ruins below were beautiful in their own way, monuments to a civilization that once believed itself eternal. And yet the future lay ahead, unshaped, mysterious, and waiting. He felt a sense of purpose stir inside him. Perhaps he could learn from the mistakes of the past and guide the future of this new world. For the first time in 15,000 years, Elias felt hope. Not hope for humanity, for it was gone, but hope for life itself. He understood that survival was not only about humans but about all life. The forests, the rivers, the animals, and the strange intelligence that now grew within the earth. Night fell, and Elias lit a small fire in the ruins of an old park. Shadows danced across broken walls as he sat quietly, listening to the new world around him. The fire warmed him, the stars watched him, and the silence held stories older than humans. He closed his eyes, imagining what the next day would bring. He did not know if he would find other survivors, or strange new forms of life, or answers to the questions that burned in his mind. But he was determined. Curiosity, courage, and the spark of humanity burned bright inside him, and in that quiet moment, surrounded by a world both strange and familiar, Elias understood that the story had only just begun. Elias woke to the soft sound of birds singing in the trees above. The fire he had lit the night before had burned down to glowing embers, casting a warm light on the broken park around him. He stretched and felt the stiffness in his muscles, a reminder that life had returned to his body after 15,000 years. He looked at the horizon and saw the ruined city sprawled below, half swallowed by forests. Trees grew through buildings and vines wrapped around rusting towers. Nature had taken back the land with patience and strength. The thought struck him again. Humanity had vanished, but life had endured. Ura's voice echoed softly from a small device he carried. "Good morning, Elias. Sensors indicate optimal conditions for exploration. Wildlife activity is high in the area." Elias nodded, brushing dirt from his jacket. "I need to see more of this world. I need to understand what has happened while I was sleeping." He started walking toward the outskirts of the city. Each step was careful. The streets were cracked and uneven, and he had no way of knowing which buildings were safe. Broken glass crunched beneath his boots and small animals darted through shadows, watching him curiously. As he walked, Aura provided information. Humanity disappeared gradually. Records show environmental collapse, resource depletion, and conflicts. Automated systems attempted to preserve knowledge and technology, but ultimately human civilization could not survive. Elias's chest tightened. He had always believed humans were clever, capable of solving any problem. But these facts were undeniable. 15,000 years of human ingenuity had ended in silence. He reached what had once been a research facility. The building was mostly intact, though plants had clawed their way through every crack. He entered cautiously, and Aura lit the area with a soft glow. Inside, he found stacks of data storage devices, computers, and scientific equipment, some still humming faintly. Elias ran his fingers over a terminal. The screen flickered to life, showing fragmented records. Ara explained. Some data remains intact. Records of human achievements, explorations, and experiments are partially recoverable. I can assist in translating and interpreting the information. Elias sat on a broken chair and began scrolling through the records. He saw images of cities, rockets, and machines humans had built. He saw battles fought, treaties signed, and experiments conducted. But among these achievements, he also saw warnings: environmental degradation, wars, and the limits of technology. Humanity had aimed for greatness but had ignored the balance of life itself. He paused at a series of images showing wildlife in human cities. Animals adapting to urban ruins, plants pushing through concrete, rivers flowing freely without dams. Aura's voice reminded him, life continues. Earth heals without human interference. New forms of intelligence may emerge as species adapt to changing environments. Elias's curiosity deepened. What did Aura mean by new intelligence? Could life evolve in ways humans had never imagined? He had seen birds building nests, foxes hunting cleverly, and deer moving with coordination. Perhaps over thousands of years, the planet had created something extraordinary in humanity's absence. He decided to leave the city ruins and explore the forests beyond. As he walked, he noticed subtle changes. Trees were taller, leaves thicker, and vines moved as if alive. Birds and animals watched him from a distance, sometimes approaching, then retreating. The world felt different, more alert, more aware. Aura spoke. Sensors detect unusual activity in the forest ahead. Patterns suggest coordinated movement among several species. Observation recommended. Elias slowed, eyes scanning the trees. A group of deer emerged from the underbrush, moving together in perfect synchrony. They stopped, stared at him, and then vanished silently. Then a pack of wolves appeared, circling a clearing, communicating through gestures and sounds he had never understood. It was intelligence, but not human. He crouched behind a fallen tree and watched. The wolves paused, looking in his direction, then resumed their activities. Elias realized that Earth had evolved in ways humans could not predict. Life had not stopped. It had grown smarter, stronger, and more interconnected. The sun rose higher, casting golden light across the forest. Elias felt a strange sense of wonder. Humanity had vanished, but the world had not. It had changed, adapted, and thrived. Perhaps this was a lesson humans had ignored. Survival was not about power or technology alone, but about understanding, respecting, and living with life itself. He continued deeper into the forest, coming upon a river that sparkled like liquid crystal. The water was clean and full of fish, untouched by pollution or human interference. He knelt and drank, savoring the freshness and purity. Aura analyzed the water, confirming it was safe for long-term survival. As he followed the river, Elias saw signs of structures that were not entirely natural. Rocks stacked in patterns, clearings arranged in regular shapes, and tunnels that looked dug by intelligent hands. Something or someone had been here. Aura warned, patterns suggest non-human intelligence. Caution advised. Elias felt a thrill mixed with fear. Perhaps he was not entirely alone. Perhaps life had developed beyond what humans could imagine, creating beings that had no need for humans to survive. The thought both excited and worried him. Night began to fall. Elias set up a small camp near the river, using fallen branches and leaves for shelter. Fire was a challenge, but he managed to ignite a small flame with flint he had found in the ruins. Shadows danced around him as he thought about the day's discoveries. The world had changed profoundly, and he had only just begun to explore its mysteries. Ura spoke softly. Elias, survival is possible. Adaptation will be your greatest strength. Observation and patience will guide your understanding of this new world. Elias nodded. He felt the truth in the AI's words. Humanity had failed, but he could learn from their mistakes. He could witness the evolution of life, study the intelligence of other species, and perhaps even contribute to the future of Earth in ways humans never had. He closed his eyes, listening to the river, the wind, and the distant calls of animals. Sleep came slowly, but it was peaceful. For the first time in 15,000 years, he felt connected, not just to humanity, which no longer existed, but to the planet itself. The next morning, he awoke to strange sounds. Birds with colors he had never seen before chirped in patterns, almost like songs. Small mammals scuttled near his camp, moving with purpose and coordination. Elias realized that life here was not just surviving. It was thriving, learning, and communicating in ways he could barely comprehend. He decided to explore further along the river, hoping to understand the intelligence he had glimpsed. As he moved, he noticed footprints unlike any animal he had known. They were large, precise, and deliberate. Elias followed them cautiously, moving deeper into the forest, the sunlight filtering through the tall trees. Hours passed. He began to doubt whether he would find the source of these mysterious signs. Just as the sun began to set, he saw a figure in the distance. It was not human, but it moved with intelligence and grace. Its form was strange, unlike any creature he had studied, yet it seemed aware of him, studying him as intently as he studied it. Elias froze. The world he had awakened to was full of wonder and mystery. Humanity's story had ended, but Earth's story was just beginning, and he, a lone human in a world reborn, had a role to play, a witness, a learner, and perhaps a guide. The figure vanished into the trees, leaving Elias with questions, curiosity, and a determination to understand. He knew that the path ahead would be full of challenges, discoveries, and perhaps dangers he could not yet imagine. But for the first time he felt hope. Not for the humans who had vanished, but for the life that had endured, adapted, and grown. As darkness fell, Elias made camp again, watching the stars above. The forest around him pulsed with life, a silent promise that Earth would continue with or without humanity, and for the first time he truly understood that survival was not about clinging to the past, but about learning from it, and embracing the world as it was now. He drifted into sleep, dreams filled with visions of forests, rivers, and intelligent creatures moving through a world humanity could no longer control. He would wake again to explore, to learn, and to witness the next chapter of life on Earth. Elias awoke to the sound of wind moving through tall trees. The forest around his camp was alive with the sounds of animals, chirping birds, rustling leaves, and distant calls of creatures he could not identify. He stretched, feeling the stiffness in his muscles, and remembered his plan for the day: to explore the abandoned city beyond the forest. The ruins of human civilization had always called to him. Though humanity had vanished, their creations remained as silent monuments. Skyscrapers stood like ghosts, covered in vines, their windows shattered and concrete cracked. Roads were fractured, bridges collapsed, and nature had claimed everything in between. Yet there was a strange beauty in the way life had returned, as if the earth itself was painting over human mistakes. Aura's soft voice guided him. Elias, sensors indicate that the city is structurally unstable. Exercise caution. Unusual activity detected in several locations. Observation recommended, Elias nodded. I understand, Aura. Let's see what's left of humanity's world. He stepped cautiously onto the broken streets. Small animals watched him from the ruins, foxes, rabbits, and even a few deer wandering among overturned cars. Birds perched on collapsed streetlights observing him curiously. Each step he took echoed across empty avenues, a reminder of the silence humans had left behind. As he moved deeper into the city, Elias noticed that some buildings were more intact than others. One skyscraper, though twisted and cracked, still reached toward the sky, its top disappearing into low-hanging clouds. He wondered how it had survived 15,000 years of storms, earthquakes, and neglect. He approached a research center. The entrance was half collapsed, but he squeezed through the gap, careful not to fall. Inside, dust covered every surface and papers littered the floor. Some had disintegrated entirely, leaving only fragments of words and diagrams. Aura scanned the area. Human data storage devices detected. Some records are functional. Elias found a terminal that still flickered faintly. The screen displayed System Online. Accessing archives. His pulse quickened. Perhaps within these machines some part of humanity's knowledge had survived. Ura's voice guided him through the files. These records contain historical data, scientific research, and cultural information. Many documents are damaged, but fragments remain readable. Human achievements, experiments, and mistakes are preserved here. Elias absorbed the information, scrolling through images of cities, machines, and people he would never meet. He saw records of humanity's struggles, wars, environmental destruction, and unchecked technological experiments. Yet there were also stories of hope, art, discoveries, and attempts to preserve life. It was a reminder of the brilliance and fragility of human civilization. He paused at a set of images showing wildlife adapting to urban ruins. Birds had built nests in streetlights, foxes hunted among abandoned cars, and trees pushed through concrete, reclaiming the streets. Elias marveled at the resilience of life. Humanity was gone, but Earth had not only survived, it had thrived. Aura spoke softly. Life continues to adapt. New forms of intelligence may be emerging among these species. Observation is crucial. Elias's curiosity grew. He left the research center and wandered toward a section of the city that had once been residential. Houses were overgrown with moss, and gardens had become wild forests. He walked down cracked streets, stepping over roots and vines, noticing signs of life everywhere. A group of birds moved together, seemingly coordinating their actions. A fox appeared and paused, watching him with sharp, intelligent eyes. The forest and city were merging, creating a new ecosystem. Elias realized that evolution had continued without humans, creating life that was smarter, stronger, and more interconnected. As the sun climbed higher, Elias found an open square. In the center was a fountain, dry but intact. Around it, plants grew in intricate patterns, almost like a garden designed by nature itself. He knelt and touched the stone, feeling the weight of time. Humans had created this city, but Earth had rewritten it, blending civilization and wilderness into something new. He noticed movement in the distance, large footprints in the soil, leading toward a partially collapsed building. Elias followed carefully. The prints were unlike any animal he had seen, precise and deliberate. Aura analyzed them. Patterns suggest intelligent activity. Unknown species. Approach with caution. Elias crept forward, heart racing. As he rounded a corner, he saw them. Creatures unlike anything he had imagined. They were large, agile, and moved with coordination. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, and their gestures suggested communication beyond simple instinct. He froze, unsure whether to approach or retreat. The creatures studied him as intently as he studied them. Elias realized that Earth was no longer a place humans dominated. It had become a world of new intelligence, evolving in ways he could barely understand. Perhaps this was the beginning of something extraordinary, a life that could surpass humanity without repeating its mistakes. Night began to fall, and Elias set up a small camp in a partially intact building. The creatures had retreated, disappearing into the shadows, but their presence lingered in his mind. He lit a small fire with flint and wood, the glow casting shadows on broken walls. The city was silent, yet alive with the rustle of trees, distant calls of animals, and the hum of unseen life. Aura spoke softly. Observation indicates that intelligent life forms are present. Patterns suggest social structures and coordinated activity. Caution and respect recommended. Elias nodded, understanding the wisdom in Aura's words. He had awakened to a world where humanity no longer ruled, but life had grown in remarkable ways. His role was no longer to dominate or rebuild human civilization, but to witness, learn, and perhaps guide without interfering. He thought of the past, human achievements, failures, and the mistakes that had led to extinction. He felt sorrow for the people he would never see again. Yet he also felt hope. Earth had endured. Life had continued. And perhaps one day humans could return in some form, not to repeat the past but to learn from it. As he drifted to sleep, the city around him seemed alive in a new way. Trees swayed in the wind and shadows moved like silent dancers. He dreamed of a world where intelligence was not limited to humans, where life could thrive in forms unimaginable. It was a vision of hope, a promise that the story of Earth was far from over. When he awoke the next morning, Elias knew that exploration was only the beginning. He would walk through forgotten cities, study new forms of life, and uncover the mysteries of a world transformed. The past was gone, but the future was alive, and it was waiting for him. Elias awoke to the golden light of morning streaming through broken walls. The ruined city was quiet, but he could sense life moving beyond its edges. Birds flitted through vines, small animals scurried among fallen bricks, and the wind whispered through the trees. Today he decided he would leave the city entirely and explore the wild lands that had grown around it. Aura spoke softly. Elias, the surrounding forest has evolved in unexpected ways. Sensors detect traces of intelligent activity among several species. Proceed with caution and observe carefully. Elias nodded. His heart raced with anticipation. Humanity had disappeared, but life had continued. The thought of discovering new forms of intelligence excited him more than fear. He packed his few belongings, gathered water from a nearby stream, and began walking along a path where roots had torn open the pavement. The further he walked, the more nature took over. Buildings became rare, replaced by rolling meadows, dense forests, and sparkling rivers. Animals moved freely, unconcerned with the presence of a single human. A herd of deer leapt across a fallen bridge, their movements synchronized as if rehearsed. Birds with vibrant colors and unusual calls circled above him. As he reached a clearing, Elias noticed something remarkable. Stones and fallen branches were arranged in geometric patterns, forming clear paths through the forest. Aura analyzed them. Patterns indicate intelligent activity, possibly from non-human species. Observation recommended. Elias crouched behind a tree, watching. A group of creatures emerged, medium-sized, agile, with luminous eyes and sleek bodies. They moved with coordination, communicating through gestures, sounds, and what seemed like subtle signals. Elias marveled. Evolution had continued in ways he could never have imagined. Earth had not waited for humanity. It had grown smarter, more adaptable. He wanted to approach, but Aura's voice reminded him, "Do not interfere. Observation is essential. Respect their space." Elias stayed hidden, documenting their movements mentally. The creatures built shelters from branches and leaves, hunted cooperatively, and communicated with efficiency that rivaled early human civilizations. It was a silent lesson. Intelligence was not limited to humans. Life could adapt and thrive in ways humanity had not foreseen. Hours passed. Elias followed the creatures from a distance, careful not to be seen. They led him to a river, its water crystal clear and teeming with fish. The creatures drank and fished, displaying coordination that Elias found both humbling and inspiring. He realized that the Earth had become a living laboratory, where new forms of intelligence were quietly evolving. As the sun reached its peak, Elias explored a nearby ridge. From the top, he could see vast forests stretching beyond the horizon. Rivers glittered like silver threads, and mountains rose majestically in the distance. Human structures were scarce here, replaced entirely by wild landscapes. Nature had reclaimed the planet, turning it into a world humans had once dreamed of but never achieved. While descending the ridge, Elias noticed signs of more complex life. Trees were hollowed in patterns that suggested nests or shelters. Paths through undergrowth indicated planning and strategy. Aura confirmed his suspicions. Patterns indicate coordinated construction. Intelligent activity likely. Elias felt awe and humility. Humanity had vanished, yet life had continued. Learning, adapting, and growing stronger. He understood that survival was not about dominance or conquest, but about observing, understanding, and respecting the world around him. He continued walking, and as dusk approached, he reached a large valley filled with mist. Strange sounds echoed from the trees, calls, clicks, and rustling that hinted at creatures unseen. His heart pounded with curiosity and caution. Could these creatures be intelligent? Could they surpass humans one day? A faint glow appeared in the distance. Elias approached carefully, moving through thick underbrush. The glow emanated from a group of creatures gathered near a waterfall. Their eyes reflected the light, and their movements were precise and purposeful. They carried objects, stones and sticks arranged in patterns that suggested planning and experimentation. Elias realized he was witnessing a form of civilization, not human but extraordinary nonetheless. He crouched behind a large rock, observing silently. The creatures built small shelters, fished, and communicated with gestures and sounds. They adapted to the environment, using resources without destroying them. Their intelligence was apparent, yet it was integrated with nature rather than dominating it. Elias felt a mixture of pride and humility. Pride for being human, humility for seeing that intelligence could take forms far beyond his expectations. Night fell, and the valley became quiet. Elias set up camp near the river, careful not to disturb the creatures. The stars shone brightly, unpolluted by city lights, casting silver reflections on the water. Aura spoke softly. Observation indicates that life continues to adapt and evolve. Humanity is absent, but intelligence persists. Elias thought about the journey that had brought him here. 15,000 years ago, he had been preserved, a remnant of a lost civilization. Now he was witnessing a world reborn, alive with creatures that learned, planned, and thrived. The Earth had changed profoundly, yet it remained beautiful. resilient and full of promise. As he sat by the fire, Elias reflected on the lessons of the day. Humanity had vanished, yet life endured. Intelligence had emerged in new forms, adapting to challenges without the arrogance that had destroyed humans. He understood that his purpose was not to rebuild humanity, but to learn, observe, and perhaps guide in ways that respected the balance of life. Sleep came slowly, filled with dreams of creatures building, hunting, and communicating. He envisioned forests alive with intelligence, rivers teeming with life, and valleys glowing with the activity of evolved species. For the first time in 15,000 years, Elias felt connected to the world not as its master but as its witness. When he awoke, the sun was rising over the valley. Mist rolled over the river, and the creatures he had watched the day before moved quietly in the shadows. Elias packed his belongings and prepared to continue exploring. The world was vast, full of mysteries and teeming with life that humans had never imagined. As he walked deeper into the valley, he noticed tracks unlike any animal he had seen, large, deliberate, and precise. Aura analyzed the tracks. Unknown species, possibly intelligent. Observation recommended. Elias followed the tracks carefully. They led him to a grove where the ground had been shaped into patterns that suggested planning and design. Stones were arranged in circles, branches intertwined in structures that looked intentional. He realized that Earth was giving him a message. Intelligence was alive, and it could take forms beyond human understanding. He spent hours observing, taking mental notes and learning from the creatures' actions. They hunted, built shelters, and communicated with precision, yet they left the environment intact. Unlike humans, they understood balance. Elias felt a growing sense of respect for these beings and for the Earth itself. As night approached, Elias lit a small fire and reflected on his journey. Humanity had vanished, but life had not. The world was alive with intelligence, cooperation, and adaptation. He understood that survival was not about dominance, but about learning, observing, and living in harmony with the world. He drifted into sleep, feeling a deep connection to the creatures, the forest, and the planet. The lessons of the day were clear. Earth would endure, life would evolve, and intelligence could flourish in forms humans had never imagined. Elias's role was not to conquer, but to witness, learn, and respect the rebirth of the world. The first light of dawn illuminated the valley, casting silver rays across the river and highlighting the structures built by the intelligent creatures. Elias rose, ready to continue his journey. The wild beyond the ruins held countless mysteries, and he was determined to uncover them, step by step, with patience, respect, and wonder. Elias woke to a soft mist hovering over the valley. The intelligent creatures he had observed the previous day were already moving, carrying branches, hunting and communicating in ways he could barely understand. He watched silently, marveling at their coordination and balance with nature. For 15,000 years, humanity had slept, and now he was witnessing a world alive with intelligence that did not rely on humans. Ura spoke softly. Elias' patterns indicate advanced problem-solving among observed species. Adaptation continues at an accelerated rate. Further observation recommended. Elias nodded. He had learned patience over the last weeks. Today he decided to venture deeper into the valley, following a river that twisted like silver through dense forests and open meadows. The creature's tracks led him further, always cautious but curious about his presence. As he moved, Elias noticed something extraordinary. Large stone formations shaped like bridges and platforms hinted at intelligence far beyond what he had seen before. Trees and vines had been manipulated with care. Whoever or whatever had built this understood the environment and respected it. Humans had once built cities without balance. This new intelligence had built a world integrated with nature itself. Elias approached one of the stone platforms. It was worn by time but clearly constructed with purpose. Aura analyzed the site. Construction indicates planning, coordination, and awareness of surroundings. Likely intelligent activity, unknown species, possibly sentient. Elias knelt beside the stones, tracing the patterns with his fingers. The thought struck him. This world had evolved in his absence. Humans had vanished, but life had not only survived, it had adapted, thrived, and learned. He felt a mixture of awe, humility, and hope. He continued along the river, and as the sun rose higher, he encountered more evidence of intelligence. Trees had been shaped into shelters, Small dams had been built to control water flow, and pathways had been cleared with precision. The creatures he had followed the day before moved through the area with purpose, showing cooperation, planning, and even creativity. Elias realized that humanity's absence had allowed life to evolve in ways humans never imagined. The planet itself seemed to have become a living classroom, teaching its creatures how to survive, adapt, and coexist without destroying one another. As midday approached, Elias reached a hilltop overlooking the valley. From there he could see the full scale of this reborn world. Forests stretched endlessly. Rivers sparkled under the sun, and mountains rose in the distance. The ruins of human cities were scattered, overgrown and silent, a testament to a civilization that had once believed itself eternal. But around the ruins, life flourished. Animals and intelligent creatures moved with purpose, creating a balanced ecosystem. Elias understood that Earth had rewritten itself, and this was a chance for him to witness history, not human history, but the history of life itself. As he descended the hill, he noticed movement in the trees. Something larger than the creatures he had seen before was moving gracefully between branches. Elias froze, watching silently. The being was elegant, powerful, and intelligent. It paused, studying him. He felt no fear, only awe. This creature was a symbol of Earth's resilience and creativity, a living proof that intelligence could take many forms. Elias crouched, observing carefully. The creature did not flee. Instead, it seemed curious, approaching slowly. Its eyes met his, and for a moment Elias felt a connection, an understanding that life, no matter its form, was sacred and remarkable. He realized that Earth had not abandoned humanity. It had simply moved on, evolving into something even greater. Night fell, and Elias set up camp near a quiet stream. The valley around him was alive with sounds, water flowing, creatures moving, leaves rustling in the wind. He built a small fire and sat, reflecting on everything he had witnessed. Humanity had vanished, yet life endured. Intelligence had emerged in new forms, and the planet was thriving in ways humans had never imagined. Laura spoke softly. Elias, your observations are valuable. You are the link between past humanity and the new intelligence of Earth. Your role is to observe, learn, and understand. Interference is not recommended. Elias nodded, feeling a deep sense of purpose. He had been preserved through millennia, not to dominate or rebuild humanity, but to witness the rebirth of a world free from human mistakes. His role was to learn, to understand, and to respect life as it evolved. As he drifted into sleep, he dreamed of creatures building, rivers flowing, forests alive with intelligence. He saw bridges shaped by sentient hands, stone platforms arranged with care, and animals cooperating in harmony with their environment. Humanity's story had ended, but Earth's story was far from over. The next morning, Elias explored a deep forest along the river. The canopy was dense, but patches of sunlight illuminated structures built by creatures. Small bridges of woven branches spanned streams, and hollows in trees served as shelters. The intelligence around him was subtle but undeniable. He watched a group of creatures solving a problem together, moving logs to create a path across a stream. Their coordination, planning, and communication were astonishing. Elias realized that life had learned lessons humanity had ignored: cooperation, respect for the environment, and adaptation. As he moved further, he encountered another clearing. Here, the remains of a human city were visible, but nature had transformed it. Buildings were hollowed by trees, streets were rivers, and vines crawled over every surface. Yet life thrived. Creatures moved through the ruins with intelligence and purpose, integrating the remnants of humanity into their world without disturbing the balance. Elias felt a profound sense of awe. He understood that Earth had become more than a planet. It was a living, breathing entity, teaching its creatures how to survive, adapt, and coexist. Humanity had vanished, but life itself had become stronger, wiser, and more creative. As the sun began to set, Elias climbed a hill overlooking the valley once more. The landscape glowed in golden light, rivers reflecting the sky, forests swaying gently, and creatures moving with intelligence and care. He felt hope not for humans but for life itself. The planet had endured, and life had grown in ways he could barely comprehend. He realized that his journey had a purpose beyond survival. He was a witness, a recorder of this reborn world and perhaps a teacher to the intelligence that would follow. His role was to learn from Earth, understand its lessons, and ensure that the knowledge of humanity's rise and fall was not entirely lost. Night fell, and Elias built a small fire to keep warm. The creatures he had observed the past days moved quietly around him, aware of his presence but unafraid. Stars filled the sky, clear and bright, untouched by city lights. The world was silent, yet alive with purpose and intelligence. Aura spoke softly. "Elias, your observations are complete for now. Humanity's knowledge remains with you. The new intelligence of Earth will continue to grow. Your role is to witness, learn, and respect." Elias nodded, feeling a deep sense of peace. 15,000 years of sleep had ended not to bring him back to humanity, but to give him the privilege of seeing Earth reborn. The lessons were clear. Intelligence could survive, thrive, and evolve without domination. Life itself was resilient, adaptable, and extraordinary. He lay beside the fire, closing his eyes. In the distance, the creatures moved, rivers flowed, and forests whispered. Earth had endured humanity's absence and had grown stronger, more intelligent, and more beautiful than ever before. Elias understood that survival was not about clinging to the past, but about embracing the present and learning from it. As dawn approached, Elias rose, ready to continue his journey. The world was vast, full of mysteries, and alive with intelligence. He would explore, observe, and learn, knowing that life would endure, adapt, and thrive long after humans were gone. For the first time, Elias smiled. Humanity had vanished, but Earth had reborn itself. Intelligence had evolved, life had flourished, and the planet had become a world of wonder, resilience, and hope. He was its witness, its student, and perhaps in some small way, its guide. And as he walked into the sunrise, the valley came alive with light, movement, and the promise of a future where life in all its forms would endure. Elias had awakened into a world without humans, but he had discovered a world that was alive, intelligent, and infinitely beautiful.